you, Janelle, and massive thank you as well to Home Education Australia, Karen, Terry, and thank you for this opportunity to speak today, but also thank you to the speakers. I have had such an amazing time this weekend listening to so much knowledge and wisdom. I feel really honoured to be here, and hello and thank you if you're watching the recording. This is fantastic, and Hoppin, amazing platform. Love learning this as well. I'm actually not a homeschooling parent, but I am an educator, and I have been for almost 26 years. And last year, about a year ago now, due to the mandates, I was given an opportunity to forge a different path for myself. And as scary as that was at the time, it has been such a blessing for me to really be able to be more aligned in my integrity. And I sat with all of the things that mattered to me most about what I loved in the classroom, and what stayed with me the whole time in kind of developing and learning how I was going to create this new path was reading, which is where I grew Book Tribe, which is an online book club for kids, homeschooling kids, because as much as I'd been an educator, I'd always been an educator in an alternate system. I started in Cape York in an Indigenous community for 5 years, and I think that those 5 years taught me to really honour the child, because the system for them on Cape York wasn't going to work if I had have followed the system in that way. So my foundational years as a teacher really grew and has, been able for me to create a path now that I understand honouring the child, and that's why I hear all these beautiful things with you homeschooling gurus and so much wisdom, and just really staying with that beauty of what the child knows and what they can teach us. But I wanted to start today with a little reading of an excerpt of an amazing book which you may be familiar with. It's called We Are Wolves. And Janelle, if we can go to the next slide. It was shortlisted for the Children's Book of the Year, Australian author. But we're going to start with just a little excerpt from this story, and you can see from the slide that I have up now, it's a made-up story, but the characters are real in that they're not real as in they're not based on someone real, but they were real. The wolf children were real children. They were left alone in East Prussia, and the excerpt of this story that I'm going to start with is a day after they'd left their homes because the Russian army had come. So this family of 3 children, a grandmother, a grandfather, and a mother, left their homes on the run. So I'm just going to start there. Soon, there are other people sharing our space. They shuffle in, silent and weary, and set up their own little homes in the stalls amidst the cows and pigs. I wonder how much they have paid that greedy woman for their shelter. A silver spoon, a gold bracelet, a diamond brooch. Anger pricks at my body. Mama passes us each a chunk of rye bread, a cold boiled potato, and a slice of cheese, then pours a cup of milk each for Otto, Mia, and me. It's a strange supper, but we all eat hungrily, silently. Except for Oma. She breaks her food into little pieces and shares it between Otto and me. I'm not hungry, she says. Old ladies like me, we don't need to eat all the time. Opa goes outside and returns with icicles he has broken from the eaves of the barn. To suck on when you are thirsty, he explains. I scrunch my nose, then realise he is serious. There is no water, only ice. When we have eaten, Mama makes a nest in the straw using all of our blankets and eiderdowns. We huddle together like baby chicks, and Mama sings lullabies until Mia falls asleep in her arms. Omar falls asleep too. Look, cries Otto, it's the musicians. The 2 old men and the 2 women who sang on the road come straggling through the barn door. They flop into the straw and moan. We wait for them to bring out blankets and food, but they have nothing more than their instruments. They look hungrily at Mozart's oat bucket and the pig's trough. I open our basket and take out a chunk of bread and some cheese. No, Liesel, says Mama, we don't have enough food. We have to save the little what we have. Opa rests his hand gently on Mama's shoulder. Anna, let her go. It is so very sweet, a great kindness that will far outweigh our loss. Mama nods and I creep across the barn past 3 cows and 2 other groups of travellers until I am standing before the musicians. Hello, I say. My name is Liesel. I saw you on the road. The tall, thin woman nods. Hello, Liesel. It is good to meet you. I am Maria, and these are my friends, Vera, Herbert, and Max. The other musicians smile, but there is no warmth, no energy in it. I break the bread and cheese apart and hand it out. I liked your singing. It was very beautiful. Maria nods for me to sit with them while they eat. Normally, I'd think that this was boring, but after seeing so many strange and terrible things today, it's lovely to watch something as simple as 4 people chewing. I don't even mind seeing all the crumbs gather in Herbert's beard. I think how nice it would be for a little mouse to live in there, all snuggly and warm amidst the hair, with a grand supply of bread for nibbling. When they are done, Vera, the short, plump woman, smiles and I stand to leave. But wait, cries Max. He pulls his double bass out of its case and holds it upright, ready to play. A good meal must be paid for. The other 3 musicians shuffle about. Vera straps her piano accordion over her shoulders. Herbert brushes the biggest crumbs from his beard, pulls a piccolo from inside his coat and stares at it. Maria turns her violin. They find milking stools and an upturned bucket for seats, and soon they are arranged in front of me with their instruments as if they were all on stage. For our new friend Liesel, announces Max, and he bows. He taps his foot 4 times and the musicians launch into a cheerful dance tune. My heart skips a little beat and I feel a smile stretch across my cold face. Otto runs over and we begin to dance, shyly at first, then with more energy as we find the rhythm and forget that we are being watched. Other travellers leave their nooks and join us. Nobody speaks, but feet tap and smiles twitch. One by one, they join in the dance, and soon there is a crowd, whirling, hopping, skiing, even singing. The chill leaves our fingers and toes, and when the 3rd tune begins, faster than the last, coats are peeled off and cheeks start to glow. We leap around and around the barn, linking arms with strangers, bowing and smiling until we have created a gathering of friends. And we laugh. And even after such a day, laughter and music float up to the rafters and fill the barn with light and life. When the music ends, there is hugging and backslapping and people return to their own little nooks. The barn has changed. It is now a place filled with happiness and goodwill. And for the first time since leaving home this morning, I feel safe. Opa beckons to the musicians. Come, we have enough blankets to share, and we have a baby who snores so loudly she will drown out any fearful sounds in the night. I watch as Mama and Opa make our new friends comfortable. We have so little, and yet this evening has been one of the happiest I can remember for a long time. I think of the woman alone in her comfortable farmhouse, just meters away, and now I feel nothing but pity for her. Sometimes I just like to sit in a moment of ease with the characters. I like to just be in that moment when we can feel them. And I think this is the beauty of reading. This is what we get. We get to step into the characters' shoes. We get to feel their feelings. We get to experience that random act of kindness that turned into this beautiful moment in the barn in amongst war. And we get to do this thinking with characters as we think through their problems. And I think that's the beautiful thing, that we get to develop this empathy as we go on the journey with these characters, and we're thinking about their decisions, but we're also thinking, well, what would I do? And Janelle, if we can go to the next slide. This is the beautiful thing, that reading helps teach us empathy. Because I think, as we know, with as mums, as teachers, empathy isn't something that we can just expect our kids to have. It's taught and it's learned. And the beauty of reading is that it can help develop this skill. As I prepared for this talk today, I learned, and I had heard some of this, but I started to get a little deeper into the studies, that empathy is on the decline. And I was like, really? We know all this about emotional intelligence, and yet empathy is, the studies show that we're in an empathy deficit, particularly over the last decade. And I was thinking, well, it's, I guess it's this pervasive nature of technology that's perhaps causing this big decline in empathy. While we know that some find empathy, we know, like I was saying, empathy doesn't happen naturally. It's a skill we develop. And our young children learn it from their parents, through experiences. And something that we learned, or that I learned, is that reading develops empathy. If we can go to the next slide, Janelle. Yes, studies show that reading fiction builds empathy. And when you have these moments in fiction, so reading it, and it's fiction, it's not nonfiction, it's not the article, it's not the science textbook, it's reading fiction. And in these moments in books, just like with Liesel and Mia and Otto in the barn, we get to experience this stuff. We get to practice making these decisions. So all of these moments we have with these characters as we go on our journey with them, we get to practice being empathetic. And I think that's just such this exciting part of reading, and what I love to explore with the children that I'm with. And we can go on these journeys in ways that they can't unless, often that they're getting to read a fiction book. Thinking through this idea of the protagonist, again, like I said, going through these decision-making processes with the characters. If we go to the next slide, Janelle, I came across, and you may know of this study, the Reading the Mind Through the Eyes test. You might have seen this test before. I'd seen it. I hadn't looked deep into the research of it as much, but I was looking more at this. I'd seen this idea and this concept before, but I want you to come on this journey with me. So what we're going to do with this test, we're going to decide what emotion the person is feeling based on reading their eyes. So Janelle, if we go to the first one. So how is this person feeling? Are they joking? Are they insisting? Are they relaxed, or are they amused? If you said they were insisting, you are correct. We'll go to the next one. Is this person preoccupied, horrified, annoyed, or hostile? She is, in fact, preoccupied. And the next one, Janelle. Is this person terrified, amused, flirtatious, or regretful? He's regretful. So, how'd you do? 3 out of 3? There's actually a lot more in the test, but I just thought I'd show you 3 today. If we go to the next slide, Janelle, do you know that better readers scored higher on that test? So understanding these emotions, so I thought that was really quite interesting. And again, coming back to this idea that fiction can help develop empathy. So developing empathy with our kids also then requires conversations, because without talking through some of these big ideas, how can the children start to work with what's going on with that character? For some kids, naturally, they have an ability to comprehend and digest this information, but conversations are key. Janelle, if we can go to the next slide. So sometimes conversations about books, and it really depends on your child, can be hard to talk about. If you haven't read the book, where do you start? And I've found In Book Tribe, that's a big part of what we're doing. We're having conversations about the book. But in other experiences, when I haven't been in a book club, or if you're at home with your kids, it may be one that you have read the book. So that would be an amazing place to start, that you're reading the book. Maybe it's not even with your child, but maybe you are reading the book, in a different space, or you've read the book the week before, and that might be a way that you just lead in with a conversation like, oh my goodness, hey, are you up to chapter 3? Did you hear what happened? I know for me, I'm reading We Are Wolves with my homeschooling little group. And the thing that I love, which happened naturally for me, my son came home and said, Mum, we're reading We Are Wolves at school. My son currently goes to an alternate school in Terry Hills in Sydney, child-led, progressive democratic kind of school. Anyway, I just was like, this is brilliant, because I can naturally have these conversations with him, but he doesn't feel the pressure of his mum questioning, because literacy teacher mum doesn't always go down that well with my son. So it's been really beautiful for me to be reading this parallel with him, and we're having these organic conversations, which has been really beautiful. But other ways to bring conversations up, if it is together when you're reading the story or driving in the car, but talking and having those conversations are just so vital to help develop that empathy. Janelle, I think the next one. Yeah, so what now? So this is the part that, there are so many questions that I find parents ask me, how do I know what book, which books are best? How am I going to motivate them? So many questions. And there isn't always going to be one answer. I often never stop a phase of a child reading. So if they're in a phase of books that you're just like, no, I let it go, and I know that they'll ebb and flow out, because I never want to put any kind of negative kind of emotion or point of view around a book. So I've always let children move through a series, even if you're not as fond of it. I always have ample books around. I think that I just moved this weekend actually to the Central Coast, which is very exciting. I'm in my classroom that I'm setting up now. And as I was unpacking, and I'm still unpacking, it's actually quite beautiful to see how many books I have. So my dad's visiting, helping me, and he kept saying, why have you got so many books? And I think this has been the beauty in a classroom. I've had so many books just so that children can feel like they've got those choices and they're swimming in options. So having lots of books, I think, is amazing. Motivating them, I think actually we're our best models for that. I think for me, starting Book Tribe has reignited a flame for my love of reading. And it was there and I had it, and then life gets busy and your phone's really close, and I'm reading lots of nonfiction, lots of articles, lots of this, lots of that, and not very much fiction. So it has been magical to pick up these beautiful children's books and read alongside children. I just finished with a 12 plus Book Tribe, and those conversations with those kids were deep, asking big questions and being able to unpack big themes. So that has been just so beautiful. But I think we are our biggest. So to answer that question, how do we motivate them? I think we need to read more and have this love of it and discussion. Maybe it's simple as, oh my goodness, I just have to tell you about what happened in my book. And I think we're going to be our biggest motivator there. When do we intervene? This is a really big question, because for someone who loves reading this much, my son isn't a big reader. And for now, I haven't intervened in a way that has pushed something on him for him to hate. So I have just continued to model, and I believe that he will find magic in his own time. with a book. And I think it's starting to happen a little with We Are Wolves. So I think sometimes it's that right book for your child. And how do we know how they are doing, which is a massive question. And I think that has been a beautiful thing for me with Book Tribe, is that when we get to clear up confusion, and there are these moments of learning those strategies on how to, well, what does that mean? You know, we don't skip over words that we don't know. Why? Let's stop and let's actually look at this, and so that I don't change the meaning. But yeah, I think having moments of reading with your child is fantastic, just so you can have that little check-in. Because I think for me, I think I was a reader at school and high school who kind of skimmed the surface, and it wasn't until I got my master's in literacy and really learnt the nuts and bolts of teaching reading, particularly teaching reading comprehension, that made me a better reader. So when I now got, you know, the strategies to teach, I feel like I use them more for myself. But yeah, the conversations, it's coming back. How do we know how they're doing? It's those conversations that I was talking about that are so important. But Janelle, the last slide, just to leave you with some thoughts, and that, yeah, reading, it's not just good for us, it's just good. And reading doesn't just help us feel, it helps us feel better. So I hope you get to be inspired listening to this, and you sit and discover the magic in reading, and that joy and the beauty and the run away with the characters and be in those different moments, and you get to experience all of that for yourself and with your children. But thank you for having me, guys.
That was really interesting. Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you.
Here's what I prepared. Here's a child, one I prepared earlier. This one's 12. She's Lorelai. She's a reader. She enjoys reading, but we're having to be. What she is a big fan. I'm going to just stop screen sharing so we can talk. She is a fan of making up words to fit the ones that she doesn't instantly recognize.
That can happen. Hey, I do that sometimes too.
So spelling's not her favorite thing, so we often have to really put a lot of effort into using our decoding skills, because we've got the skills, we know how to decode our words, but it's a lot of work sometimes to actually put the effort into doing that.
Yeah, and sometimes, darling, you know what? It just takes when you say the word and you're hearing it in the sentence, if it sounds a bit weird, you've probably used the wrong word. You know what I mean? That's sometimes what can happen, because if you substituted a word like house or home, that wouldn't really matter, would it? Because they mean the same. They both start with H. It wouldn't really matter, and you can get away with it. But sometimes if we, you know, it's a feeling of a character. Maybe the character's just feeling so stressed out, and you've said that they're feeling really excited. That doesn't make does that make sense, honey? So sometimes it's knowing, kind of tracking what's going on, but it can be tricky. It's challenging. There's so much going on in reading, isn't there? Yeah.
But reading's a great way to expand our vocabulary as well. We've got some we drove as a family. Last year. We drove across the Nullarbor to Adelaide, and then back again. And we had an audio book, like with, I don't know how many hours of story is there on the 6 CDs.
I don't know.
So 10 or 12 hours for this book reading, and it's an adult book, not a kid's book, but it's got some amazing vocabulary that every now and again, even now, after having the same book in the car for a year, we still come home and look up new vocabulary words. Some of the ones we liked, they described the weather as leaden and portentous.
Oh, wow. Don't you love it?
Yeah. So we came home and looked up what they might have meant by Lorelei looked up what they meant by leaden and portentous.
And what does it mean? Tell me. Do you
I can't
remember?
remember.
You can too. So the weather was leaden and portentous. What was the leaden?
Sounds kind of.
Remember.
It sounds dark, darling. Was it?
Yes. So what was happening after the weather felt leaden and portentous? What happened after that?
Big golf ball sized raindrops.
Big golf ball sized raindrops was the next thing in the story. So leaden was dark.
Yeah, and
Portentous was
big and rain.
ominous.
Ooh, yeah.
Portentous means ominous, and it feels like it's about to something ominous is about to happen.
And I often think of the ominous with the word weather. The weather's looking really ominous. Thank you for teaching me 2 new words.
Yeah, we thought they were good words to describe weather.
Yeah.
So yes, we enjoy that. So I have some questions.
Yes.
My younger daughter, who is she's 10, has dyslexia and dysgraphia. Here we go. Here's another one I prepared earlier. Another child I prepared earlier.
I'm gonna go around.
Yeah. So she has dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
So with that of course it was a big part of why we became homeschoolers, was because we started for COVID, and they came home from school, and she went from being a 7-year-old who couldn't read to being a 7-year-old who could read once she was at home with mummy.
Because that's right, you're an educator, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Yes.
I'm also a primary teacher.
Amazing.
But yes, so she learned to read once she was at home with mummy, because I could give her the additional time to work on that. But the dyslexia does make it very difficult, of course, to make progress. So with your book Tribe, how might we deal with that?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I have a boy who's done 2 book tribes with me now in the 9 to 12 year group. He has used Audible to work, because we read together in the session, but then they have to read chapters before the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So he reads those chapters either with mum or Audible. But we have seen the beauty of it for him. He has so much to give. He just can't decode. So because he has so much, it's given him this outlet to share everything he's got, because he's been able to stay with the story. He even decided a couple of times to have a go at a page.
Oh, great.
So he built up the confidence enough. And it was slow and laborious, but it was so beautiful to see him step in and say, today I want to have a go at this page. And the kids are under no pressure to read aloud. It's something they step forward and they say, I'd like to have a go. But that's what I love about it, that our great readers can come and enjoy and go deeper. But readers who are finding text harder to grapple with can take the audio version but join us in the connection of it. So I've always said it's definitely for everyone. And I feel like it's built his confidence and is continuing to build his confidence, because he's getting these moments where he gets to be part of a group of readers. So it's developing that, let me see myself as a reader. Yeah. Rather than sort of going, I've got dyslexia, so I don't read.
Yes.
So sort of undoing, and he was at school a little bit similar to your daughter, and now in a homeschooling environment. So it's helping undo a lot of the messages he got at school.
Yeah, I think that we're lucky that we probably started at the right point, that there's less undoing the school messages than there might have been. And also, she was in an alternative, a Montessori school.
Oh, okay.
So,
she wouldn't
but it's still, even within that environment, she still couldn't get her needs met in the way that she needed for her to be able to learn.
Yeah.
But we have recently found some graphic novels that she really enjoys.
Oh, yay. Okay.
So that's where we're reading the Little Sisters Club from the Babysitters Club series.
Unreal.
And she's enjoying them. So they're a graphic novel style series, and
Beautiful.
have a whole series of different books.
Yeah.
She also really loves the movie Descendants. So I've bought her some books from there, and that's because it's something a topic she loves so much. It's motivation to work harder on dealing with the difficult words.
Yeah.
My books have just been using audiobooks because, but I've been working on some other easier books.
Yeah, she's saying she's been the books I bought her. She's been listening to as audiobooks, even though she has the physical book.
She can, yeah. And sometimes, honey, you can just read along with the audiobook. That's really good practice for you as well.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So I can come across to your booth to look at this, but since you're here anyway,
yeah.
do you offer? Do you offer online clubs for?
Yeah, it's all online. I've been running the term 3 different age groups.
Yes,
like a 7 to 9, a 9 to 11, and sort of 12 plus. Ish. You know, kids. I've had a younger one and the little one or whatnot, but it's an ish age group because the older group, I'd like to hit some bigger themes to unpack.
Yeah.
And I've been offering one a term. They're 5 weeks. I'd love to do 2 a term or run one on this day, but it's new. So I'm getting there, and that's, it'll grow when it.
Well, one a term to some degree makes sense because, as you know, as a school escapee, it gets very testing-y towards the end of the term.
By week 8, I'm happy. Book tribes come to a close.
Yes, so they all get to the point where they're all doing so many tests and stuff, and that becomes stressful for them.
Yeah, it does. And it's 5 weeks is nice as well. It's worked well timing-wise with our novels. They've had an amount to read, but it hasn't overwhelmed them.
Great.
And I've had some kids check in with me and they've gone, help, can you send a recording? So I've just read it and emailed through audio if they haven't got it on Audible. So if they got the book, but they just didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be advertising the next one and the books soon. Like in the holidays, I usually put them up. But it's been really nice. It's really been fun. The last one of my girls, she was like traveling. So every book tribe, like, where are you? Getting the update on her journey across, Australia. So it's really neat to have them connect. And then I think one of them got to meet her other Queensland friend that she'd met in book tribe. So it's
fantastic.
Quite lovely connecting little homeschoolers. Yeah.
Well, that sounds really good because we do sometimes get families who, when they're starting out, are talking about finding it hard to for their kids to make connections and to find those right online sort of environments where their kids can go online and meet other kids, but in a safe sort of way. So, I love the idea of it. Yeah,
I know. I had a big chat to Karen when I started, and it was really, you have this moment of, it all feels really aligned, and it's really what I went to try and do it to mainstream, and I went, no, I've left for homeschool. This is why I did it. So it feels really good to have kept it closed in that way for the homeschooling families.
Terrific. So for anybody who's watching the video replay, where can we find you? Do we just Google Book Tribe? Will that get us to you, or what's it called?
My will I pop it in the chat, Janelle, or does that not work?
I'm not sure that the chat goes on the video, so maybe we just say it out loud so that we've got the details.
AM Inspired Learning is my website. So AM as in the letters AM, inspiredlearning.com. And when you go to my website, you'll see Book Tribe. It's right there as part of my services. So
Terrific. Okay, so AM Inspired Learning.
Yeah.
Great. If anybody is still looking at this on replay who's still in the 2022 HEA conference, you can go and check out Amanda's booth in the expo area. And if you are looking at it afterwards in the replay, AM Inspired Learning, have a look online and go and check out Book Tribe. I know I'm going to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
Right. See you later. Nice to meet you, girls.
Thank you. Bye-bye.